6.0, property of exponents. Why do we have this 6.0? Well, because you learned properties of exponents back in algebra class. So this, you should make sure that you are looking at these. We're going to go over these quickly, and then we're going to actually apply them. So any number raised to the 0 power is equal to 1. That's what that first one's saying. If I am dividing with the same base, so a is my base here, that means I can subtract the top, subtract the bottom. I think about this a different way, but I'll get into that with the practice problems. If you have a negative exponent, that base, the a stays the same, it just moves on bottom. So now my exponent is positive. If you have a power to a power like this, you have to distribute it. So you have to multiply powers to a powers, just like this. So this is a power to a power. And if you're multiplying with the same base, you'll be adding exponents. Same thing here. If I have a power, I have to give it to both the top and the bottom. You can't be a greedy person. You have to be kind to everyone. So applying those properties that I just showed you. So this first one, there's different ways that you can go about doing this, and you can do it in different orders and still get the same answer. So one thing when I'm looking at this is all multiplying. And the first thing I notice that there's no power up here. So it's all multiplying. So I'm going to actually multiply this number and this number. So that would give me a negative 15. And I have the same base, so this a and this a. If I am multiplying, that means I should be adding my exponents. So this would be a to the negative 1. Now I never, ever, ever want you to keep a negative exponent. So when you're doing this negative 15, this is a positive exponent. There's no number here, so that's like a positive 1. So that 15 is going to stay on top, that negative 15. The a, though, is going to move on bottom. You technically do not have to have that 1 there, but you sure can if you want to. So there we go. That one is done. So next one. First thing you notice is that I have a power to a power. So when you have a power to a power, you're going to distribute that power in. So you can't be greedy, and the thing that people usually forget is this one right here. Now I'm going to say this is what you're thinking in your head, negative 4 squared. And then you have, because this is the 4 was to a power of 1, and I have a negative 3 times 2 would give me a negative 6. And then y to 2, I multiply those together, I get 10. Now I should simplify that. You should always simplify that. So negative 4 squared would give me 64. I'm not going to keep that x on top because it's negative, and then I have my y to the 10th on top, leaving me with x to the 6th on bottom. And that right there is my final answer. And last one for this section, I'm dividing. Now one thing that I personally do when I'm dividing is I'm going to make my fraction bar, and then I try to simplify it as is. So I looked at my whole numbers. So in this case, I have a 4 over 1. I can't simplify a 4 over 1, so that still stays as 4 over 1. You don't have to write the 1 if you don't want to. Now I'm going to look at my a's. Now with division, you are subtracting exponents. But one thing that I personally do, you could subtract and have a negative, but I look, okay, are there more a's on top, or are there more a's on bottom? Well, there's more a's on bottom. So if there's more a's on bottom, my a will end up on bottom. And then I take my exponents and I subtract. Once I know if it's on top or bottom, then I take my larger one minus my smaller one. So in this case, it's 5 minus 1 would give me 4. Then I look at my b's. So in this case, there's more b's on top. So I'm going to write my b on top. And same thing, on top I would take my larger minus my smaller, which would be 5. And then finally I look at my c's. Well, in this case, they're the exact same. If they're the exact same, they completely just cancel each other out. So you could leave your answer written like that. I personally don't like how I drew that long line there. So I'm going to just write 4b to the 5th over a to the 4th. And that right there is my final answer. And then this is the final one that I'm going to be doing with you, and then you should be doing E and F by yourself, and we'll be going over those the first thing tomorrow in class. But again, I personally like to draw my division bar, but actually before I do that, now, whoopsie doopsie, I see a lot of negatives. I don't like negative exponents. So I'm going to first actually get rid of my negative exponents and then simplify my fraction. So I'm not going to do anything with this 2 and 6 yet. However, you could if you want to. X to the third is positive, so I'm going to keep that there. That X on bottom is negative, so I'm going to move it to the top. This X right here is negative, so I'm moving it to the top. The Y to the third on top is negative, so I'm going to move that to the bottom. Again, this is where that Y moved it on bottom to make it positive. Y squared on top, because it was negative down here, so I'm moving up top. My Z's are already positive, so I'm going to keep it as is. So now I'm going to simplify. So first thing I look at are my 2 over 6. So this fraction right here, 2 over 6 is the same thing as 1 over 3. Now when I look at my x's, both of my x's are on top. So my x will end up on top. I'm multiplying in between these two. If I'm multiplying in between these two, I'm adding my exponents. So I'd have x to the fourth on bottom, because 4 plus 1 is 3. Then I look at my y's. So here are my y's. Right now I see that there are more y's on bottom, so my y will end up on bottom. And when I look at my y's, I take my larger one. Once I know it's on bottom, I take my larger minus my smaller, and that's going to give me y to the first. And my z's, if there's no number there, that's like z to the first. And there's more z's on bottom, so it's going to be on bottom. And I take z minus, or 2 minus 1 is just 1. And that right there is my final answer. Again, I want you to try to do E and F by yourself, and we'll go over those first thing tomorrow. Have a great, grand, wonderful day.